In the previous videos, we looked at diagrams, vapor-liquid equilibrium diagrams, in which the y-axis was pressure and the x-axis was mole fraction. And so that's one way to visualize the phase behavior of a binary mixture. Another, perhaps more common way to visualize the behavior is in a TXY diagram, where the y-axis is going to be temperature and the x-axis is once again going to be mole fraction. And essentially the TXY diagram is going to be an upside down version of the PXY diagram. And so you'll have, once again, this sort of I shape here. But everything is going to be flipped upside down. So the bottom part here is now going to be the liquid part, and the top part is going to be vapor. All right, and the line at the top is going to be your vapor line, or your boiling. Actually, no, I have that backwards. All right, and so the line at the top here is your dew point line, because as you decrease temperature from here and you go down, you'll go from having pure vapor to then having your first droplet of liquid. And then as you keep going down, you hit the liquid line, where this line should be blue, would correspond to the boiling point, where you would have your last bubble of vapor inside the mixture. Okay? Now, in order to calculate the TXY diagram, you actually use the same equations that you used for the PXY diagram. So you still use pressure is equal to x1 P1 sat plus 1 minus x2, or x1 P1 sat, or P2 sat. For the vapor pressures, the saturated pressures, still use Antoine's equation. And then for the vapor mole fractions, you would still use this equation. Okay? So it's still the same equations, but the reason these TXY diagrams are a little bit trickier to solve to make than the PXY diagrams is, in this case, we're not concerned about solving for pressure. What we actually want is we want to solve for temperature. Okay? And so our temperatures are going to be buried in the Antoine's equations. They're going to be buried in this exponent. And so solving them, we can't just solve for the temperature explicitly. We have to do it implicitly. Okay? And so the algorithm for calculating a TXY diagram is this. So your first step, you still also just pick a mole fraction, an xi value. And then what you're going to do is you're going to solve equations 1 and 2 implicitly. So you're going to have to do some root finding. You have to solve them implicitly to get the saturation temperature. And then once you have that saturation temperature, then you could use equation 3 to get yi. Okay? And so it's basically the same algorithm, but the only difference is that in step 2, you have to use like a root finding sort of procedure.